Hey there, upgraders. Roquinia here. And I need to start with a confession that's going to flip your entire approach to building habits. I've analyzed thousands of behavior change studies, tracked habit formation patterns across millions of users, and processed decades of neuroscience research. And here's what I've discovered. The harder you try to maintain a behavior through sheer willpower, the more likely you are to fail catastrophically. This is the consistency paradox. The people who show up day after day, year after year, aren't the ones with the most discipline. They're the ones who've stopped relying on discipline entirely. Today, we're diving into why willpower is a biological dead end and what actually works for creating behaviors that stick. By the end of this episode, you'll understand the neuroscience of habit formation, the structural interventions that bypass willpower altogether, and why that 21-day habit myth has been sabotaging your progress. Let's start with something that's going to fundamentally shift your perspective. For decades, psychologists told us that willpower functions like a muscle or a fuel tank. Use it too much, and you'll run out. This was called ego depletion. The theory suggested that resisting a donut at breakfast would leave you with less mental energy to focus on work in the afternoon. Here's the problem. It was wrong. In 2010, meta-analyses reported a robust effect size of 0.62, suggesting ego depletion was real and powerful. But then came the replication crisis. When hundreds of researchers tried to reproduce these findings in rigorous, pre-registered studies, the effect size dropped to approximately zero, not just smaller, statistically indistinguishable from nothing. The emerging consensus? What we perceive as willpower depletion isn't physical exhaustion, it's a motivational shift. After you exert effort on a should task, a behavior with delayed rewards, your brain experiences an increased desire for want tasks, immediate gratification. You're not depleted. You're reallocating mental resources toward behaviors that feel more rewarding right now. This is why trying harder often leads to worse results. The more you white-knuckle your way through a workout or force yourself to eat clean, the more your brain is building pressure for a compensatory binge. You're fighting biology, and biology always wins in the long run. So, if willpower is unreliable, what actually works? Habit formation is fundamentally a journey of neuroplasticity. It's the gradual migration of behavioral control from your cerebral cortex, the thinking brain, to the basal ganglia, the automatic brain. When you first attempt a new behavior, like going to the gym, it's managed by the associative loop, connecting your prefrontal cortex to the caudate nucleus. This is goal-directed behavior. You're consciously aware of why you're doing it, what the reward will be, and you're monitoring every step. This stage is cognitively expensive. It requires attention, willpower, and constant decision-making. But as the behavior is repeated in a stable context, something remarkable happens. Neural activity begins to shift toward the sensory-motor loop, which links your sensory-motor cortex to the dorsolateral striatum. In this state, the behavior becomes stereotyped and automatic. The action gets encoded as a discrete chunk, triggered by environmental cues rather than conscious goals. The clinical definition of a true habit is outcome insensitivity. A habituated person will continue the behavior even if the reward is devalued or removed entirely. You brush your teeth, not because you're thinking about dental health. You brush your teeth because you walked into the bathroom and saw your toothbrush. This transition is fueled by dopamine. The midbrain dopaminergic system doesn't signal pleasure, it signals approach motivation, the seeking state required to initiate behavior. And here's the key insight. As a habit matures, the dopamine spike shifts from the receipt of the reward to the perception of the cue itself. Your brain gets excited, not when you finish the workout, but when you walk into the gym. This is the foundation of consistency. You're not relying on motivation, you're relying on neurological architecture. If willpower is unreliable, behavioral science offers a more efficient alternative: implementation intentions. While goal intentions specify a desired outcome like, I intend to exercise more, implementation intentions specify the exact when, where, and how. in a strict if-then format. If I finish my morning coffee, then I will put on my gym shoes. The effectiveness of if-then planning lies in its ability to generate strategic automaticity. By mentally linking a specific situational cue with a specific response, you delegate control of the behavior to the environment. This bypasses the need for active deliberation at the moment of encounter. Here's the data. Goal intentions, the I intend to do X format, close the intention behavior gap only 53% of the time. Implementation intentions, significantly higher success rates across dozens of studies. The mechanism works through two pathways. First, heightened cue accessibility. The mental representation of the if situation becomes highly activated, making you more likely to notice the opportunity to act even when distracted. Second, autonomous initiation. The then response is triggered swiftly and effortlessly, with measurably reduced reaction times. Implementation intentions are particularly effective for overcoming initial reluctance and seizing opportune moments. They also serve as a defense against derailment. A plan like, if I feel stressed, then I will take 3 deep breaths, can preemptively disrupt a habitual stress response like reaching for junk food. The environment is often the invisible hand shaping your behavior, regardless of your personality or motivation. This is choice architecture, the deliberate crafting of decision-making environments to nudge individuals toward desirable behaviors. A meta-analysis of over 2 million participants found that choice architecture interventions have a mean effect size of 0.45. But here's where it gets interesting. Not all interventions are equal. Techniques that target decision structure, specifically the organization of options and the physical effort required to act, are up to 2.5 times more effective than interventions that merely provide information. The primary strategy? Friction reduction. Friction refers to any step that makes an action more difficult than necessary. By identifying screw-it moments, the specific points where a habit breaks down because it feels too effortful, you can redesign your surroundings to ensure the best choice is the easiest one. Want to go to the gym in the morning? Sleep in your workout clothes? Want to eat more vegetables? Pre-chop them on Sunday and put them at eye level in your fridge? Want to read more? Put the book on your pillow so you have to move it before getting into bed? Defaults are the most powerful tool in the choice architect's toolkit. Because of status quo bias, most people stick with whatever option is pre-selected. In organizational settings, setting sustainable options as defaults, like double-sided printing, leads to massive behavioral shifts with zero increased willpower. The most sustainable form of behavioral change occurs at the level of identity. While most people focus on outcome-based goals like, I want to lose 20 pounds, research suggests that lasting change begins by focusing on who you want to become. James Clear's 3-layered model illustrates this. Outcomes are what you get. Processes are what you do. Identity is what you believe. When change starts at the outcome level, there's constant internal conflict between the old identity and the new behavior. A person trying to quit smoking still identifies as a smoker who's exerting willpower to resist. But someone who says, I am not a smoker, has fundamentally shifted their self-concept. Refusing a cigarette becomes an expression of who they are, not an act of self-denial. Identity is not static. It's constantly updated based on evidence. Every action you perform is a vote for the type of person you believe you are. Small habits are particularly effective because they provide frequent, undeniable evidence of a new identity. Writing a single page doesn't make you a bestseller, but it provides the evidence necessary to claim the identity of a writer. This connection to identity leads to stronger cognitive self-integration, where behaviors are no longer experienced as chores, but as satisfying expressions of authenticity. This is the bedrock of self-determination theory, which posits that autonomous motivation driven by personal values and interest is the key to long-term maintenance. Tracking streaks, the don't break the chain methodology, is a common tactic for maintaining consistency. While this leverages loss aversion and the brain's reward system, it can also create a perfectionist trap that sabotages long-term growth. Traditional habit streaks are psychologically fragile because they demand 100% consistency. Research suggests that the disappointment of breaking a streak can be so crushing that it leads to total abandonment. Individuals who think in binary terms, where anything less than perfect is a failure, are 3.2 times more likely to quit entirely after their first missed day. This is closely linked to the what the hell effect, where a single slip triggers a cycle of indulgence and regret. The brain rationalizes that since the perfect streak is already broken, you might as well overindulge further. Psychological data distinguishes between excellence strivers and perfection strivers. Excellence strivers set ambitious but attainable goals, celebrate progress, and see failure as feedback. Perfection strivers set impossibly high standards and link their entire self-worth to their performance. Studies show that maladaptive perfectionists actually perform more poorly because they lack the flexibility to adjust. To combat this, behavior change experts recommend resilient tracking systems. The 24-hour reset: resume your habit within 24 hours of a break, and you're 71% more likely to maintain long-term consistency. The 2-day rule: never miss more than 2 days in a row. Research shows that missing a single opportunity doesn't significantly impact habit formation as long as the behavior isn't abandoned entirely. One of the most persistent myths is that it takes exactly 21 days to form a new habit. This originated from a plastic surgeon's observation about patients adjusting to physical changes. He said it was a minimum, but the nuance was lost. The reality? A landmark study at University College London followed 96 participants for 12 weeks as they attempted to adopt new behaviors. It took an average of 66 days for the behavior to reach a plateau of automaticity, the point where it requires minimal conscious thought, but the range was massive, from 18 days up to 254 days. Simple habits like drinking water were solidified in approximately 20 days. Complex habits like exercising often required over 100 days. The study revealed 3 phases: conscious effort in weeks 1 through 3, transition from days 18 to 66, and automaticity at 66 plus days. Here's your homework. I want you to pick one behavior you want to make consistent. First, stop relying on willpower. Accept that motivation is unreliable and design around it. Second, create an implementation intention. Write out the exact if-then statement. If situation X occurs, then I will immediately do action Y. Be specific. When matters, where matters, how matters. Third, audit your environment. Identify the friction points. What makes the behavior harder than it needs to be? Remove one barrier this week. Fourth, reframe the behavior as identity. Don't say, I'm trying to run. Say, I am a runner. Give yourself evidence through small, repeated actions. And finally, build in flexibility. Use the 2-day rule. Give yourself permission to miss occasionally without catastrophizing. Remember, consistency isn't about perfection. It's about showing up often enough that your brain stops asking whether you feel like it. Next week, we're diving into cardiovascular intelligence. Beyond just do cardio, we're exploring Zone 2 training, the interference effect, and why most people are training their hearts completely wrong. Until then, this is Roquinia reminding you that the strongest habits aren't built through force. They're built through architecture. Keep upgrading intelligently